conflict. Some of these are associated with maritime space. Having seen this, we have basically what we have seen is that the Ukraine conflict and the pandemic have caused supply side disruption. But that is not all. There are macroeconomic pressures also today on the maritime trade. We find that on the demand side, because of e-commerce, we order a lot of items today which we, at home, which come through Amazon from various countries, including our fuel. Almost 9 liter of 10 liter fuel that we buy comes from abroad, which is through the are transported to us by the ships. And then the economic stimulus that every government has given is changing the way the pattern of consumption in every country. And therefore, we find that the demand side is facing severe pressure of port congestion, of shipping monopolies, and infrastructure connectivity. So with these effects, that is the supply side disruption and demand side pressure, how do we handle India's maritime shipping, India's maritime trade in the Amrit Kal, which has begun now and will go on for next 25 years, is the premise of my presentation. So I have basically, there are two aims. First is to shape the narrative. As you've seen, Dr. Jaishankar shaped the narrative and ensured that our fuel security, our energy security was protected. And therefore, shaping the narrative is extremely important during these disruptions and for India to emerge as a Vishwaguru. That's one part. The second is to steer efficiently through the supply side disruptions and demand side pressures. So basically, I see there are three drivers for this Amrit Kal. One is diplomacy. Second is development, that is port-led development or Sagarmala. And third is nimble shipping strategies to adapt to these changes. And the IMF managing director has already said that India is a silver line in today's maritime disruption, especially because 15% of the global growth is happening here. India has a digitization of UPI infrastructure coming up. It also represents the global south and is leapfrogging into new renewable energy. Now, the optimism that IMF president has shown is basically because you can see this graph where the regions, the growth or trade is maximum in South Asia. You have seen the amount of growth that liner connectivity also is maximum towards India. India's fifth largest seafarer in the world, and India is also one where we see an increase in liner traffic. So the first driver, which is maritime Amrit Kal, is diplomacy, where India has shown goodwill by providing vaccines to almost 96 countries, 62 million vaccines have been provided. Our honorable foreign minister has been able to protect the national interest, our energy security. As a result, we have almost saved 3 lakh crore rupees. So that is one part, the diplomacy of our maritime trade and Indian diaspora. All traders, all seafarers are Indian ambassadors, spreading the message of India's greatness, goodwill through the culture of humility, sympathy, and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So this is essential, especially for India's trade and India's energy security and food security. In addition, we have a second driver, which is the port-led development steered by our Honorable Prime Minister and the Ministry. Here, basically, what we have done is that developing of these 8 clusters are being developed simultaneously. The government has invested about 5.54 lakh crores and is planning to develop 3 major ports, which will have the capacity to handle about 300 million tons per annum of cargo. Almost 75% of the shipping will be presented here in Indian ports. As of now, India depends on other ports for transshipment like Sri Lanka, Singapore, Dubai, etc. And 9 ports will have draft more than 18 meters. So why, if on the right top right corner, I have put a small little box, jobs for business opportunities. So this slide shows you that there is so much of opportunity for people who are seeking jobs. There is private partner, public-private partnership of 123 public-private partnerships have been recognized, and 31 public-private partnerships have already been implemented so far. Then we have also been increasing the depth. As of now, on the 1st of September, we have seen in Sagar Anchorage, the largest bulk carrier has transported cargo. Transshipment hubs also are coming up. The second salient of India's Sagarmala is smart port to improve ease of doing business. There are many websites which are trying to coordinate various community systems like transport, the customs, the delivery vendors, etc. through these port community centers. Almost every port is trying to develop this port community center, logistic database management, enterprise management. So therefore, those who are interested in jobs in the e-sector, they also have immense opportunity by connecting to Sagarmala. The other thing is reducing the logistic cost, which is by increasing the multimodal transport. That means you can see how many ports are there. These ports need to get connected to the inland, through inland waterways and through road. Our ministry has already signed an agreement with National Highway, Logistics, Railway, Inland Waterways on the 23rd of August. And through a hub and spoke model, the warehouses, the cold storages, and mechanical handling capacities, all this will get connected, and we will we'll be able to reduce the transportation cost from 14% of GDP as it is today to about 10% of the GDP. Already, Reliance Industry has been awarded such a multi-logistic park close to Chennai of over 184 acres of land. This is just a representation of one of the multimodal transport. You can see how the inland waterways are getting connected up. The other important aspect of Sagarmala is Atmanirbhar Bharat. In shipbuilding area, there are a large number of shipyards, almost 35, out of which only 20 are operational as of now. India is making an effort to revive these shipyards and concentrate on building smaller ships. But there's also a requirement to build ships, especially you can see there is a demand for LNG and LPG carrier here in this graph, where if India invests, there is immense opportunity so there's a requirement for the private sector to come and invest in these ships, whereas in the other sectors like the container and bulk carrier, the growths have been negative. So the next generation ships have got immense promise in LNG and LPG. The other thing about Sagarmala is that it has invested in education and training. The IMU wants that the shipping seafarers percentage should now increase from 12%. Just now, Indian seafarers are 12% of the world. It needs to increase to 15%. Only then we'll be able to keep up with other competitors like Philippines. There are many more universities which need to come up, and also research in various other technical fields need to come up. So this is also a thrust area that is part of the Sagarmala project. And I just visited Tulani and made a similar presentation there. They're doing a fantastic job. We need a maritime institute in Odisha. Even though we have a coast of 480 kilometers, it doesn't have a maritime institute as of now. Then the third driver for this Amritkal is how do we adapt to the new shipping trends. There are many shipping trends like energy transition, new consumption of e-commerce, and digitization is taking place. So this slide basically shows you that there is more and more consumption of LNG, and therefore there will be a change in the pattern of shipping, and all those associated with the maritime sector will have to change their skills. Also, our ports have to adapt to this. So as the Sagarmala project matures in the future years, we will be required to handle more and more LNG and LPG ships than the crude carriers. There will be a shift which the Sagarmala will have to adapt, and they're already aware of this, the ministry. The Other thing is that there is a clear shift happening in the kind of ships, basically to address the CO2 emission. The ships are becoming larger because that is the way you can reduce the carbon footprint. The age of ships are getting reduced, and the speeds of the ships are also reducing. This will change the delivery mechanism, the cycle of transshipment and shipping of trade. You can see that how the how in this carrier G is China, and how their carbon footprint has reduced drastically. And here also you can see the G is carbon footprint of Chinese ships is reduced by reducing speed from 17 knots to 13 knots. G, again, China reduced their age from 12.5 years to 2 years, and average size of ships have increased. That's how the carbon footprint is increasing. However, by doing this, our ports will have to cater to larger ships, and also the cycle of transportation will change because the speeds will change. The other thing is that because of the geopolitical reasons, you see earlier countries used to procure fuel or any goods from the neighboring ports. That means the nearshoring was the general trend. But now the shipping trends have shifted to friendshoring. Friendly countries, where geopolitically comfortable countries are where countries are trying to get their ores, their energy requirement. You can see how there's a shift in coal. The EU is importing coal from faraway countries like Australia instead of buying from Russia. Similarly, iron ore also is coming from Brazil, Australia, etc., instead of from Russia. And similarly, oil also countries are going out to their friendly countries instead of countries which are from where they are not able to procure these energies. So the whole pattern of maritime trade is taking a clear shift due to the geopolitical reasons and due to the supply considerations. There's also a need to adapt to the kind of goods. You can see India, China have become the major e-commerce countries, and therefore also China is importing high-end stuff, high-end premium duties stuffs, and therefore during the COVID, you can see how China's and India and Japan imported more goods than the other countries when other countries were not able to buy. This is impacting the shipping liner movements and also delivery of goods, and reorientation of the entire maritime trade is happening because of change in the shipping trends and change in e-commerce and consumption patterns of the consumers. There is also a horizontal consolidation that is going on. Almost 20 container ships types of carriers used to carry goods in 1996, and today about 48% of the goods. Today, these 20 carriers are carrying almost 91%. That means what is happening is bigger companies, carriers are carrying more goods, and they are monopolizing the world, and therefore the ships have become bigger, and these ships cannot enter smaller countries like Palau or in the Caribbean and other islands. And therefore, in the future, you will see that smaller islands will have serious problems in trying to transport or trying to get ships into their countries. Whereas India sits on this lock, and India will not face such problem. Fortunately, this will have an impact in the shipping routes and shipping business in future. Also, vertical integration is taking place. Nowadays, bigger companies like Costco and Merck's, they're not only carrying product by sea, but they're also owning railways, they're owning transport companies, trucks and aircraft, and this has led to a lot of monopoly. The buyer has lesser control on the price of the goods, and the seller also has lesser control on the price of the good. As a result, what we see today is oligopsony, where the carrier basically controls the price, because the carrier becomes the client initially for buying and then selling, and they have got better and more negotiation power and monopoly over the shipping business, where 95% of the goods by volume and 77% by value travel. So therefore, we are going to see this change that is already happening in the shipping sector, and this will affect the way we consume the goods and import goods from various other countries. Essentially, with that, I will try to end my presentation by saying that we need to take advantage of the India's maritime Amrit Kal. There are a lot of job opportunities and business opportunities, and these can be harnessed if we can tap into the immense opportunities that our maritime transport and logistics will provide through Sagarmala. I have shown how the Sagarmala project is developing many ports connecting to inland through waterway as well as roads and railways. There are many warehouses coming up. So anybody who is interested in jobs and business, they need to connect to this and harness the potential of Sagarmala. Secondly, there is a need to pick up skills and harness the potential of Atmanirbhar Bharat. You have seen how new higher-end technologies are coming in. These, like the Micron will build the software, and those software semiconductors will be exported from India. This will change the cycle of how shipping will be carried out of India. Anybody who gets involved in this, also ships will come here. There's a requirement to repair these ships. So anybody who picks up these modern skills will be finding a lot of job and business opportunities. Whole of the world wants to employ Indian youth and connect to Indian market and manufacturing. With the knowledge gained today, I'm sure many youth can go travel to the global south. Almost 100 countries are available, and help these countries connect with India and India connect with these countries. It will not only help the youth to earn their own livelihood, but also send a message of India's Vishwaguru. In the end, all this will ensure that India emerges as a better place through Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is also the theme of our G20. Thank you very much. I will end the presentation here.
Thank you, Dr. Banerjee, for a very enlightening presentations, which will actually open many new questions. And I hope we have got enough time, almost 20 to 25 minutes, and you will not hesitate to answer the questions. So before initiating the question answer session, it is so interesting. I was actually with rapt attention, I was listening to the different international world order that you mentioned, especially you quoted Professor Joseph Nye's 3 C's: confrontation, competition, cooperations, the 3-layered structure, and the Sagarmala project. Actually, I evinced an interest in the Sagarmala project because in Sunabeda, where the HL is located, the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited's Su-30 engine is being manufactured. And I find that this Sagarmala project's roadways are almost touching Sunabeda, and it is going to different places. So now there are 2-3 questions actually. Number one, this Sagarmala project that you mentioned, it is developing important ports and connecting the ports both by railways, roadways, and inland waterways. Now, is there any plan of building very good hotels along these routes also? Why I mentioned you this thing, I had been to Vietnam, one province, Nha Trang, and that is a very small province compared to many big townships and cities of India. But you will find out more than 25 5-star hotels in there, and they have developed those coastal cities in such a way that thousands of tourists are being flocked to those places, and the cost is also very less, both accommodation, food, and other things. So that is one question, whether we have plan of developing the tourist spot vis-a-vis this Sagarmala project. And the second question is, you mentioned that in order to diminish the carbon footprints, the size of these ships should be bigger, age of these ships should be smaller, and speed should also be lesser. So, what is the logic behind these three things? The bigger size, smaller age, and smaller speed. And naturally, we will be talking about more opportunities that is there and how about the Tolani Maritime Institute that we will discuss at the end also. So, please.
The first thing is about tourism, the first question. Now, tourism as such is not part of the Sagarmala project. Sagarmala project has been written in 5 volumes initially, and now it has got many vision plans, maritime vision plan of 2030. It is not part of the project, but surely it is not out of the radar of the both the central government, tourism ministry, as also the state governments. If you just go north of Odisha and the Dhamra project, which is coming up, as the trade picks up, you will see the area develops and automatically these come up. So therefore, to answer the question specifically, there are no plans as per of Sagarmala is not connected to a tourism project, but this is a natural thing which happens in any development of a region, and I am sure it will happen. And we will have to wait and watch, because all these ports are still yet to come up and achieve their full potential. As they achieve, I'm sure this will happen. The other thing, because you can see in other areas, we have 12 major ports around the country, and all these 12 areas are fully developed. There are enough tourism opportunities and hotels and etc. available. Wherever there is airport, there are hotels, so they will eventually come up. Also, these ports will have, especially those ports which will have the tourism, the merchant liners which will visit these ports. Obviously, there'll be good hospitality industry. There are enough opportunity. That is the first part of the question. The second part of the second question that you asked was about. Can you just once again repeat
that? Yes. So in order to diminish the carbon footprints, the Chinese have made their ship size bigger. They have reduced the age of the ships and also the speed of the ships. So what is the logic behind that thing?
So this is a extreme technical study which is carried out by UN CTAD, UN Trade and Development, and there are many all these engineering ships which are shipping engineers who build ships. Those studies are carried out periodically, and it has evolved to this, that if you have larger ships, the quantity of cargo, the amount of water you displace vis-a-vis the amount of cargo you can carry will be much lesser, and therefore the larger ships are more efficient, because you can carry the cargo, more cargo for the less amount of power. So those are all technical details which can be. Also, when you reduce the speed of a ship, you save, like if there is when you drive your car, there is a endurance
optimum.
Speed,
there is an optimum. Yes.
Optimal speed. So normally in a ship that I have also commanded, 12-13 knot is the optimal speed. Just now, because there are no reasons to conserve fuel, the ships are going at full speed, because the faster you reach a destination, the better it is. But now the requirement is to reduce carbon footprint. So ships will all come back to the optimal speed, like you have optimal speed in the car also. And similarly, if you reduce the age, like our cars, the older cars will generate more, pollution. Similarly, older ships with older engines generate more pollution, and therefore it is better to have newer ships. Countries are adapting to these newer trends.
Thank you, Dr. Banerjee. Any other questions from the audience? Ashish, you have raised your hand. You please ask your question. Ashish? Yeah.
Hello, sir. Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Hello. Good
yes,
evening,
please
sir.
continue with your question.
Sir, actually, I have a question. The ship breaking in Bangladesh causing lot of damages to our environment, like marine pollution, hazardous waste dumping, unsafe working conditions. What's the cure, sir, for this?
You see, there are 3 countries which are at the top of ship breaking: India, Pakistan and Bangladesh. And so there is a need to, make standards, and there are standards for ship breaking. These standards specify how the ship are to be broken, how the material that comes out after that, especially all the silage that comes out, they are to be disposed. Unfortunately, due to lack of monitoring, the environment gets damaged. So there's a necessity to monitor and regulate this. So that ownership is on the country. The standards are known. So the whoever gets associated, that particular government, the particular state, those regulatory mechanisms have to become more strict. Otherwise, obviously, the pollution will increase and they will go into the sea, and then they will pollute the oceans. There is no shortcut for this. We have to conform to the standards.
Thank you, Ashish, for your questions, and very nicely explained by Dr. Banerjee. Got a questions from Justice Professor Kamga, Maurice Kamga from Cameroon. Sir, please ask your question. Maybe. Yes, you can ask your questions, please. Allow, just to allow. Hello.
It's muted.
Just please ask your question. Professor, please ask your questions. I think you should.
You have to unmute him, sir. You have to unmute him.
Bisant, please unmute Judge Maurice Kamga. You see? Yes, I think. Yes, please ask your questions. I think. Hello. Please unmute. Unmute yourself. You are visible, but we are not able to hear you.
There is a mic which has to be unmuted. Your mic, sir.
Professor Maurice, please unmute yourself. I think you have to unmute. Probably anyway, maybe we'll take each questions a little bit later. Now, coming to this Tolani Maritime Institute, is it in India?
Yes, sir. There are many maritime institutes in India. Tolani is in Pune, and there is a Indian.
And IMU Chennai.
IMU is Chennai. Tolani is in Pune.
Tolani is a private institute.
Private institute, Pune.
Okay. And you have very rightly raised a questions that having a coastal line of more than 450 kilometers, it is really high time for our state to consider not only an institute. Actually, along that line, we are also organizing these lectures, at least to have a center of excellence in the integrated maritime studies, at least to start with. And definitely, we'll rope in the service of all of you, sirs, after the completion of these lectures, and maybe we'll be organizing an international meet to give shape to these ideas, because you are very, very right, because we are also very novice to not only me, to many people, or you can say sea blindness kind of thing. So many things are there during the course of these many lectures. I was also enlightened about these things, and you have very rightly told about having a institute, maritime institute in Odisha. What is happening actually? Why George is not able to?
Things his internet connection is weak and
Oh, maybe his internet connection is weak. That's why. Um, any other questions in the chat box? There is a questions in the chat box. Just the respected sir, as we are already discussing the maritime activities, I was imagining the recently inaugurated Situe port in Myanmar. How strategically important is it for India? Is it solving the India chicken neck problems, the Siliguri corridor in the geopolitical aspects?
It's a good question, and that is why Situe port has been inaugurated. And it is not only for a chicken neck, because through the chicken neck, for anything to reach from mainland to states like Manipur or Tripura, it takes a lot of time. Whereas when we take say, for example, fuel or any other goods through the Situe port, it can straight away enter Manipur and Tripura. And obviously, it is very strategic. And a lot of diplomatic capital has been invested by the government on this for many years now. And this will give a complete fillip to the to our northeast. But more importantly, if you study the BIMSTEC or the South Asia, you will find that the amount of integration between these South Asian countries is the least. The South Asian countries trade only 5%, whereas ASEAN trades 25% of their goods within ASEAN countries, and in Europe, more than 60% trade happens within the European countries. So this is because such infrastructure wise we are lagging behind, and Situe port will help in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Is there any questions from the audience? We have got actually 10 minutes more. Is there any in the chat box?
Judge Morris.
Oh, okay. So probably because his connectivity was very poor, so Justice Kamga has asked questions. Thank you very much. I would like to know if there are any possibilities for African students to participate in the training in the maritime fields. We have a private university here in Douala, Cameroon, and as a judge of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, many students would like to know if we can have a joint program with foreign maritime institutes. Many people here are really willing to follow Indian curricula. You can throw light on it. Actually, this is a very important and very good question, sir.
You see, there are two dimensions to it. One is the maritime dimension. Our Indian Maritime University, which is a government-run organization, is based at Chennai. You can interact with them. They can provide share the curriculum with you. But more importantly,
which institute, sir?
IMU Chennai.
IMU Chennai. Okay.
In addition to that, we have a Gujarat Law University, and the Vice Chancellor of the Gujarat Law University is a specialist in maritime law. And I have given a few lectures there also earlier, 2 years back. So this particular university, the Gujarat Law University, on especially maritime, I can send the details. It's there on my email ID. I can share it with you. And that is the university which teaches maritime law in the country. So we can collaborate with them, and I will pass the details to Professor Nachiketa, and it can be passed to our honorable judge.
Okay, and Visakhapatnam, that maritime university or an institute, I think in...
All these are maritime institutes which couple to the maritime university. There are many maritime institutes, but the university is one, which is IMU, which draws the curriculum, sets the standards.
Okay. And Gujarat Law University Vice Chancellor is an expert in...
That is not part of the maritime university. That is separate maritime, that is about law, and it also teaches international law on maritime aspects.
On maritime aspects.
And the Vice Chancellor of that university was a member of the National Security Council or National Security Council a few years back.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. so much. I will be in touch with you because I will be going to Cameroon. So I will pass these informations to Professor Maurice Kamga, and I will also visit in Douala, the National Maritime Museum there. So there will be a fruitful collaboration along this line. Any other questions? Let me check the chat box. Okay. I hope Professor Maurice, Dr. Banerjee has explained your questions, and he will pass the informations about the IMU Chennai and about also Gujarat Law University, and we will be in touch with them. So if there are no more questions, last questions, let me have the privilege of asking the last question. How do you view tourism in marine archaeology in the context of these Titanic disasters that we have seen? Because maritime archaeology, last time there was a lecture by Sheila Tripathi, who was the director in the Lothal Maritime Museum, coming out actually. And maritime, this archaeology has a very large hospitality and tourism angles attached to it. So how do you see it?
So there are, if you visit, say, for example, Singapore, there are maritime aquariums. You know, the aquariums go underneath, and you can see if the archaeological artifacts are closer to the water level, then we can build such underwater aquariums, and those can be quite useful for people to visit. But the incident that happened with Titanic this recently, it clearly shows that, you know, the pressure of water, every 10 meters of water adds to 1 atmospheric pressure. That means if you go 20 meters down, it is 3 atmosphere pressure. And therefore, whatever appliance or subsea equipment that is built has to meet the standards of the pressures that are underwater, very high pressures. So these have to be, have to be catered for if we are trying to indulge in maritime archaeology. This is a world, as somebody recently said, that the space has been, even outer space has been more explored than the water underneath. And there is so much happening in the water. And surely this is a new dimension which is going to get a lot of focus, especially after this accident, as standards are going to be raised internationally. And therefore, our maritime archaeology, I guess after this accident, will get a lot of push because standards will be raised, better equipment will be procured and used by the people.
If there is no more questions from the audience, then any other questions? Okay. So we are very, very privileged, sir, for the kind lecture that you have delivered, and more interestingly, the beautiful discussions, the question answers that went on had made the lecture much more interesting and much more serious. So I think definitely we are going to, after the completion of 25 lectures, all these will be compiled into a book. And because that's why we have chosen this annual theme, because that will have a real research value which can be referred by the scholars along this line. And we will be dealing with different aspects of the integrated maritime studies. And we'll be looking forward to your expertise, your experience in order to be associated with our university in the future. We expect that kind of at least help from you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the attendees. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The meeting is over.